Thank you very much. This is the September 16th meeting of the town meeting established Ash Landfill Closure Committee. I want to welcome the board members. To my left, Clerk, High School Principal Carl Scazzarella, town meeting member, Precinct 10. To my right is Selectman Michael Serino, Selectman Chair Deborah Panetta, and from the Town Manager's Office, Jeannie Meredith. So thank you all for coming this evening. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from the previous meeting, and Carla did a great job in preparing the minutes. I don't see anything there that needs correction or anything.
Mr. Chairman?
Have a comment, Madam Debbie? Ms. Panetta? Miss Debbie.
Yes. Call me whatever you want. I'd like to make a motion to approve those minutes.
Chair seconds to approve the minutes of July 1st as presented. And there were a couple of attachments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. The chairman's comments regarding Wynn's participation. For a moment there, we thought that Wynn was going to attend, and Jack Walsh had said he'd be here. But apparently there's been a change of heart. They will not be attending this or any future meetings. They've already made their position known earlier as to that they feel that we have no authority over what they do with their lands. But that's fine. We will continue with our work and move forward. But it's disappointing that there would have been an opportunity, just like there was with the aggregate closure committee, to work collaboratively to do something that's in the best interest of the town. And I think what Selectman Serino is going to show us tonight will show that there are some positive opportunities for the town that can and should be pursued. With that said, I will move on to share a draft letter that I think we should send to the DEP and to the state delegation regarding this committee's formation, and I think there should be indication in the letter. I didn't put it in here thinking that they would be here, but I think it should be noted that their refusal to participate. You have a copy of this. It's the last page of your packet. During the 2024 Saugus annual, this again, you'd have to vote this if you feel comfortable or you want to edit it. During the 2024 Saugus annual town meeting, it was unanimously voted to create the Ash Landfill Closure Committee. The Saugus town meeting is responsible to develop land use policies and zoning amendments. As you know, the Wynn Ash Landfill on Route 107 in Saugus has been operating under a consent order for nearly 25 years. This committee believes that the Saugus should receive the same benefits and protections afforded to other Massachusetts communities. Without a consent order, the Wynn Ash Landfill would not meet the Commonwealth's ash management and disposal policy. As this landfill approaches capacity, it is the stated desire of the Saugus Town Meeting to explore other economic uses of the site, which could include a large solar farm, something Town Meeting has already authorized through a zoning overlay amendment. We therefore wish it to be known that Saugus is not supporting any expansion of the ash landfill, and we are opposed to any amendments to the ACEC prohibitions on siting a solid waste facility in an ACEC. Any suggestion by Wynn that Saugus is in the process of negotiating for more ash is completely false. And I would just add that earlier that Wynn has expressed that they will not participate in this committee. I think DEP should know that. If there's any thoughts or you'd like to add something or amend something, please share your thoughts. Any thoughts?
No, I think it's a good letter, Peter.
I think that there's some confusion out there because when Waste came before the Board of Selectmen for a host agreement, and what they showed us was that they wanted to go from 50 feet of ash to 100 feet. And I clarified that when the presentation was being given because I asked how high the second shot was when they were showing how high and what the difference would be. And I asked, what is that? And they said it was 100 feet. At that time, the Saugus Board of Selectmen did vote 3-2. Mike and I were the two, that we did not want any more ash, and we did not vote in favor of the host agreement. It didn't mean that the other three people were in favor of more ash. It was just that they felt, I'm going to use the words that they used, it was an insurance policy in case the DEP allowed them to go higher on the ash, and they wanted to make sure that Saugus got something. I kept saying all they're going to do with that, because we, as the Board of Selectmen, have no jurisdiction to negotiate a contract like that. That is up to our town manager. It is not up to the Board of Selectmen. So technically, there is no host agreement, because we aren't supposed to be signing or entering, and we, when I say we, I mean the Board of Selectmen, into any agreement. We have no jurisdiction. And during that meeting, I also said, all you're going to do is raise a piece of paper and say, hey, look, the selectmen want this. The selectmen don't want more ash. Nobody wants more ash in this town.
I think you're right, Deb. I think it would have sent the wrong message to DEP that the town was in favor of it. So I think how we voted was the correct way, in my opinion. But
Before we vote on this letter, I will add this statement now that we know that they refuse to attend again. Although, after the first paragraph, I would just add, although town meeting invited Wynn to participate, they have refused to do so. That would be the only statement.
Okay.
Okay. So if there's any, if there are no questions or amendments on this letter, I would entertain a motion to send it to the state delegation and to the, I think it's Mr. Fairbrother of the DEP, who's the solid waste section chairman. I'll find out who is in that position, but DEP should have a copy. Mark Fairbrother?
Yes.
Is there a motion to?
So moved.
Mr. Serino moves to accept the letter with the amendment as stated. Chair seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Okay, the third thing would, actually, number 5 on the agenda, discussion, ash transport to Shrewsbury. I did notice that the Board of Health had Wynn again in last week, and they talked about how much ash they're trucking out. I haven't heard any concerns or complaints from anybody about ash leaving Saugus or using Saugus roads or anything like that. Has the board received any concerns from
No.
anybody about that?
No, none.
They're using state roads according to the agreement they have with DEP. So they are reporting every month to the Board of Health how many truckloads they're taking out, and I see we're lucky to have Mr. Joe Durant from the Board of Health with us tonight. Joe, can I ask you what they said about ash transport? I don't want to put you on the spot, but could you take the microphone, Joe, and let us know what they reported to the Board of Health?
Sure. I believe they're saying there's six loads per month, so many tons and everything else. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's quite substantial, the
And
amount
have
of.
they indicated that there's been any problems taking the ash out of Saugus?
No, they said, just like you mentioned, it was based on approval, previous approval by DEP.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
May I ask
Okay.
a question, please?
Yes, go
through you?
ahead.
So it's 50% of their daily ash is being trucked out to Shrewsbury every day. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And do they see an end in sight? Did they talk about what's going to happen when they hit the 50 feet?
No, they didn't. Actually, I asked them I was confused by one of the management reports that came out last week, and I asked them about it because they said they were going to recommence filling the valley in the spring. And I thought that was ongoing and all along, and they told me, no, it was phased in. So I guess one phase was complete, and they're doing the next they're three-phase process, and they're they're recommencing one of the phases in the spring.
Thank you, and I
Okay.
want to thank you for all your hard work on the Board of Health. And
Oh,
thank you for
thank
being
you.
here
We're
today.
lucky
Thank
to
you.
have you there. Thank
Thank
you. Well, they're obviously delaying the inevitable by taking the ash out. They want to keep it open, hoping that something is going to happen politically, either in town or at the state level, to allow it to continue. But in going with that, moving on to number 6 on the agenda, report from Deborah Panetta and myself. Deborah, could you talk about, we went to DEP last month, it was a month ago, to find out what's going on in terms of notice as to what they're up to. Deb?
I will. I just want to clarify one thing, what I said earlier. It's the Board of Health's jurisdiction over that site. So it's really important to understand, not the Board of Selectmen, it's the Board of Health. With that said, Peter and I, on April 15th, went to the,
August.
what did I say?
April.
Oh, goodness gracious. August 15th at 9:30, we went to Woburn, and we went in and met with the DPW, and we got there at 9:30. We left, they closed at 12, so we left, it was just after 12 o'clock, and they have a remarkable number of files. They have the accordion files, one after another, and they were just filled with file. Everything was very neat and sorted. And what we really were looking for was evidence that Wind Waste is looking for ash expansion, some sort of a letter, something that indicated that they were moving forward and trying to work with the DPW in terms of ash expansion in Saugus. And we could not find any evidence of that. And I think we hit every file, and we really, it was very interesting. I mean, some of it you could just sit there and spend hours, days, just reading through all the history. But that was specifically what we were looking for, and we could not find any evidence of that.
Yeah, there was nothing in writing at the DEP, but we did find some very interesting history that people should be aware of. And in particular, as they were negotiating the consent order, the Edward Kuntz, who was the commissioner of DEP, wrote this email to DEP counsel on June 21st, 1991. And I think it's worth sharing. I'd like to read it. It's in your packet. I totally agree that the ash policy applies to Resco. Lynn was Resco at the time. I think we should seriously consider a separate action that gets them into compliance with the ash policy. We should review the status of other pre-ash policy facilities from the perspective of their compliance with the ash policy. I know that the Lawrence Ogden facility is in compliance with the policy, and the state is responsible for ash disposal capacity for the Neswick facility. However, I don't think we're in compliance with our own policy. We're good with our word, ha. While I think we lose a little PR leverage with separating the ash policy from the FEP, that's the final engineering plan for the landfill they were talking about, I think there are more positive features. Example, the battle over long-term ash disposal will not slow down progress on the final engineering plan. The MEPA issue still troubles me. I think I understand the legal principles you reference with our obligation to make sure MEPA certificates are complied with in our permitting process. Where I get hung up is with MEPA, quote, sticking their nose, unquote, into our consent order process. It seems that the logic we use to justify avoiding some permitting actions in our enforcement actions could also apply to us not having to keep the MEPA process involved with our consent order actions. Besides, the fact I just don't like some other agency getting in the middle of our enforcement actions. I'm probably just acting like a stubborn jackass, in quotes, on this issue. Maybe my position would change if I understood what MIPA's involvement brings to the whole process that we won't get from Luke's diligence on the final engineering plan and our getting compliance with the ASH policy. Regarding the pre-meeting, I have a meeting with the commissioner at 12:30 on the 1st of July. That should be over about 1:10. We can all try to get together at 1:30 in my office for a pre-meeting as long as no one minds me slobbering my lunch down while we talk. So from that, you can see that DEP, when they entered into the consent order, was struggling with the contradiction that they were going against their own policy by doing this. And perhaps it was okay for a couple of years, but this has been over 20 years that they've relied on consent orders. And if you're wondering what the policy was, to get into the consent order, they did have, we found this part of the consent order. On August 3rd, 1988, the Division of Solid Waste Management revised the division's ash management and disposal policy, SWM-7-888, which set forth the handling and disposal requirements for ash and residue produced by solid waste combustion facilities. This policy, as revised, required disposed ash to be monofilled in dedicated landfills, incorporating best available engineering technology and department and leachate control systems and operating in accordance with regulations governing solid waste landfills and policies by the department governing ash disposal. So clearly, the consent order is an end run around their ash policy. And to this day, they've relied on this and want to continue to rely on a consent order to do what is not allowed anyplace else in Massachusetts. And if you're wondering about his concern about why should MIPA be sticking their nose into this, well, the next page is the purpose and intent of MIPA from MassGov. The Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act requires that state agencies study the environmental consequences of their actions, including permitting and financial assistance. It also requires them to take all feasible measures to avoid, minimize, and mitigate damage to the environment. MIPA further states that state agencies use all practicable means and measures to minimize damage to the environment by studying alternatives to the proposed project. There were never any alternatives studied in 1991. In developing enforceable mitigation commitments, which will become conditions for the project. So, at the time, DEP was ignoring MIPA and its purpose, and ultimately, it's the people of Saugus, Revere, and Lynn that are not receiving the same protections that would be afforded other communities in the Commonwealth. And that's really what this is about. And so, in spite of that, it appears that they're still going to try to push for expansion, although this, as Debbie points out, there's no evidence, Ms. Panetta points out, there's no evidence that they've initiated any request to do so. So the purpose of this committee is to look at what can be at this site without ash. And Mike has been working all month to, as he indicated at the last meeting, to study the potential land use, land values, and the economic benefit. Because one of the arguments that's been made is if you let us dump ash for another 20 years, you're going to get $1 million a year, and that'll be $20 million. And you could do a lot with $20 million in Saugus, right? But Mike has come up with some facts that he'd like to share. So I turn it over to you, Mr. Serino.
Thank you, Peter, and thank everybody for coming tonight. And people at home, I know this is being broadcasted live tonight. So as we know, WIN would like to continue dumping toxic ash into their online landfill. And the proposal, like Selectman Panetta said earlier, would probably go, the height would probably go from 50 feet to 100 feet, and therefore your development opportunities of that landfill would be lost. I believe that the development of this landfill will provide forever a tax revenue stream to Saugus versus, like Peter said, a one-time lump sum, $25 million, and the landfill is basically dead at 100 feet. So tonight I'll offer some examples regarding the forever economic benefit to Saugus if the landfill was developed. And I'd like to just note that state law does require the landfill to close once the height of 50-foot height is reached. And I'd just like to also note that opposed to any expansion of the Saugus Action Volunteers for the Environment, the Saugus River Watershed Council, the Conservation Law Foundation, the Alliance for Health, Toxic Action Center, State Representative Jessica Giannino, who represents East Saugus, State Rep Jeffrey Turco, who represents Revere Point Pines, and the Mass DEP Commissioners, Martin Suberg, who sent a letter on November 16th saying that it could not be expanded, and that was upheld by the new DEP Commissioner, Gary Moran, in 2023 letter to the town. So tonight we have up on the board my landfill presentation. Those are my opening remarks. I'm going to talk about the original 1984 and 1994 tax agreement, the Ash Landfill subdivision plans at Wheeler Breda. You're going to understand when I go through the presentation, you're going to hear DiMatteo, you're going to hear Resco, you're going to hear Wheeler Breda, and you're going to hear Wynn, because those are the companies, the names have been changed so many times. You're going to see the Ash Landfill subdivision plans that were submitted in 2003 and 2017 by Wheeler Breda and DiMatteo. We're going to talk about the Saugus Solar Farm and the revenue that's bringing into the town. Then I'm going to talk about land values on Route 1, Route 107, and we'll talk about that. And then the development of the landfill. I put together 10 possible development sites because the latest subdivision plan asks for that 235-acre lot to be subdivided into 10 lots, so I'll be talking about that. Okay, in the 1984 original tax agreement, that was approved through land court. That was a land court agreement. On page 2, it says, both the town of Saugus and DiMatteo desire to cooperate in the commercial and light development of the property situated adjacent to the Resco facility referred to as the DiMatteo landfill. On page 8 of that court agreement, it says, in order to facilitate the expeditious commercial development of the DiMatteo landfill, Resco will continue to apply residue generated by its combustion process to the landfill. The application of the residue will serve as final grading material prior to the commercial development of the landfill. Page 10 of that agreement, Resco DiMatteo shall develop the landfill property to its highest and best use as expeditiously as possible. The best mix of uses stated are the various possible office, warehouse, light industrial, and shopping center. So you can see in the 1984 agreement that, they had planned on developing that landfill once it met that 50-foot height. And we have a 1994 clarifying tax agreement. And the memorandum from Town Manager Ed Collins said the clarifying agreement is intended to clarify and not supersede or significantly modify the original 1984 tax agreement. On page 7, in the event that the Wheeler Breda property, formerly known as the DiMatteo landfill, is developed for any other purpose other than the storage or disposal of combustion gas residue, the Wheeler Breda property shall no longer be subject to the original 1984 tax agreement or the 1994 clarifying agreement.
Excuse me, Mike, did you want to change the stage?
Oh, I'm sorry. And it's if it is developed, it will be taxed in the same manner as a classified property within the town, which is commercial and light industrial.
I just interrupted. It will be taxed in the same manner. So under this use as an ash landfill, how is it being taxed?
It came under that special tax
So they're not
agreement.
paying the commercial tax rate?
No, they're not. They're only paying $96,000 a year for the whole 35 acre landfill, that's all they're paying.
$96,000 for 235 industrially zoned acres.
So that's why they don't want to develop the property. It's their desire to get a cheap tax rate.
Mr. Serino, what
Sure.
would that be equivalent to if they paid the commercial tax rate?
I didn't figure that one out, but it will be. I'll get to that later.
Okay.
It'll be like 22.05 is the commercial tax rate this year, times 235. So, and now we're going to talk about the Ash Landfill subdivision plans. In 2003, Wynn submitted plans to the Saugus Planning Board to subdivide their 235-acre landfill into 12 commercial lots. Again, in 2017, Wynn submitted a plan to the Saugus Planning Board to subdivide their 235-acre landfill into 10 commercial lots. Hayes Engineers represented Wynn at that time. Hayes stated several potential uses for the property, which included an industrial park and a solar farm. So we'll talk about the solar farm that Saugus has. In 2016, Town of Saugus signed a 20-year lease agreement with Ameriso to install solar panels on 4 acres of the DPW landfill site. In lieu of taxes, Ameriso pays the town $20,000 annually to use that site. So if you see the Saugus solar farm's 4 acres in size. It receives $20,000 a year in lieu of taxes from Ameriso. Wind solar farm is 235 acres, 59 times greater in size. So if you take the $20,000 times 59, this would it would be $1,180,000. So almost $1.2 million a year that Saugus would receive in property taxes if that landfill was just developed as a solar farm. I'd like to talk about Route 1 land values. I looked at the land values at Home Depot. Their land value there is about $430,000 per acre. Lowe's is about $549,000 per acre. Target is $509,000 per acre. Square One Mall is $853,000 per acre. Marshall's is $839,000 an acre. Stonehill Hotel, that's $513,000 an acre. Walmart, $446,000 per acre. Kohl's is $703,000 per acre. And Eastern Bank is $842,000 per acre. So I wanted to compare the values of Route 1 with the land values on Route 107. That gas station, that's about a quarter of an acre lot. That's assessed at $390,000. Marchetti Trucking is right beside the gas station. They're 0.69 acres, that's under an acre. They're assessed at $497,000 a lot. We have the Hillco property, a UPS building that was recently built. That's being assessed at $475,000 per acre. Then we have a contractor's yard down the middle of Route 107 on the right-hand side. That's at $267,000 an acre. And then we have the wind trash plants being assessed at $169,000 an acre. Why those two properties are being assessed at a lower rate is because of the use of that property. It devalues the use as a contractor's yard, and the rest plan it devalues the value of the property of the land. Then down we have a couple vacant lots. The Atlantic Lobster has 2 vacant lots, one where the building was that was torn down and one beside it. The building was $260,000 an acre, and Atlantic Lobster, the vacant lot, is $236,000 per acre. The wind landfill, the value is $18,000 per acre compared to the rest of those values on Route 107. So what I did next is I wanted to find the average value of land so I can compare it with the 235-acre landfill property if it was developed. And here's what I took. I took all the land values where buildings are located on, because they're worth more than a vacant piece of property. And my calculations on the landfill was for development with buildings on the property. So that's why I use these property values here. The gas station, like I said, is $3.90. It took Marchetti. I looked at the Hilltop. I put that down. I included the contractor's yard and the trash plant, even though they're kind of a low use purpose for that property. And I came up with a value of $1.8 million. And so I took and I divided that, and the average land value on Route 107 per acre would be $360,000. I looked at the commercial tax rate, and it'd be, Saugus would receive close to $8,000 an acre, and I wanted that figure because that's how I'm going to calculate the 10 lots on the 235 acres. It would be 23.5 lots, but 10 lots would be 23.5 acres, and that's how I'm going to calculate what the town would receive once it's developed. And here we go with the development of the 235-acre landfill. Like I said, it was 235 acres. We divided that by 10, so you'd have 23.5 acres a lot. The established Route 107 tax revenue per acre, like I just stated, was close to $8,000, $7,938. So each 23-acre lot, the Saugus tax revenue per lot would be $186,543. That's for each 23.5 acres, which is going to be 10 of them, 10 of those lots. And I did 10 examples of the land. The land values on all 10 examples are going to be the same, $186,543, but I took examples of what type of businesses we could put on them 10 lots. And I went with the, other than Hillco, which is on Route 107, I went out to Route 1, and I looked at Home Depot, Lowe's, because they're similar warehouses and retail facilities. So that's why I used them examples. So if you look at Lot 1, say we're going to put Hillco back on there, their building value is $7,806.400. So their tax would be $172,000 a year based on the $22.05. So their tax would be $172,122. So their total tax with land and a building would bring in $358,665 a year. Now remember, we have 10 lots on that property. Lot 2, the land value is the same as I said earlier. Home Depot, their building value is approximately $12 million. That would bring in $267,642 just for the building. Their total tax would be $454,185 a year to Saugus. Lot 3 was the Lowe's building, valued at about $14 million. The total tax between the building and the land would be $492,266 a year to the town. Lot 4, I put a target on Lot 4, target building. Building values $10,699,000 roughly. That would bring in a total tax of $422,455 a year. Lot 5, I went with Square One Mall. The building value there was about $69 million. That would bring in a total tax of $710,572 a year. Lot 6, we put a Marshall's building on that lot. Land value is the same, $186,543. The value of that building is about close to $10 million. That would bring a total tax in of $402,743 a year. Page 2. Okay, page 2. On Lot 7, We put an eastern bank on that lot. That's valued at about $2.7 million. Total tax in that to the town would be $247,312 a year. Lot 8, we put the Stonehill Plaza that's up in Route 1. That building value is about $11 million a year. That would bring in a total tax of $438,552 a year. Lot 9, we put a Walmart on Lot 9. That's valued at about $21 million. And all this information is on the Board of Assessors website on the town. That's where all this information came from, so it's accurate. The total tax from the Walmart building would bring in $654,444 a year. In the last lot, Lot 10, we put a the Kohl's Mall by Walnut Street. It has the Amazon Planet Fitness. That's valued at about $13.3 million a year. And the total tax that would bring in is $481,131. So if my arithmetic's correct, the potential yearly revenue from the development of that landfill could bring in to Saugus in property taxes $5,662,325 a year. I'd just like to say in my closing remarks, and that's a forever tax revenue, that's not a one-time payment. So in my closing remarks, I think this is the best option. Thanks, Jeff. In my closing remarks, like I said, it's property tax would be $5.6 million roughly, and it'd be a forever yearly tax revenue stream for Saugus. It'd be a forever economic and development opportunity for Saugus, and it will not further harm our environment. WIN's proposal is continue to dump toxic ash into the landfill, harmful to our environment. The town left with a 100-foot-high toxic ash landfill with no development opportunities and no forever economic benefit to the town of Saugus. Thank you.
Mike, what a tremendous amount of work you put into that. I want to thank you. I just want to remind everyone that Mike was the chairman of the Board of Assessors, and he had specialized training from the state to use the processes of assessment and to put this together and so forth. I just want to thank you for the work. It's quite compelling, and even if you're off by a large factor, it's still more money than what was offered in that host community proposal that 3 selectmen accepted. So it's, I guess the question comes down to, and we do have time for public comment, the question comes down to, you can see the numbers are compelling, and maybe you wouldn't get all those developments, but even if you got half of them, that's $2.5 million, which is twice as much as what was being proposed. How do you compel them to sit at the table and to plan something like this? I mean, I would think that the corporate board of directors would see more value in this. I don't know, maybe they're just making a lot of money on dumping ash or whatever, but you know, how can we compel them to join with us, to join with the town like Aggregate did? I think that's a question. And again, I want to thank you, and I think we should add that presentation to the letter that's going out to the state officials. Does anyone have an objection to that? Can you print out, give us a copy of that, and I'll send that out.
I think, Peter, even in the tax agreements that were applied in 1984, 1994, the clarifying agreement, it did mention about development of the landfill, but it also mentioned that they realized, both parties realized they have to work together, and it's going to take time. It's going to be a phased-in development. You're not going to see this all at once. It's going to take time to develop that whole 235 acres. But no matter how long it takes, it's still in the best interest of the town to really develop that now instead of dumping another 25 years.
The best interest of the region as well, the jobs, economic opportunity. I don't know, you have to wonder, is it the point of no return at 50 feet? Is 50 feet too high? Certainly if they go to 100, it's gonna be too high, and you'll never be able, you'll foreclose on the opportunity, so. With that said, if there's any objection, I'd like to open it up to public comment, citizen participation, we have it on the agenda. Anybody have anything they'd like to say? We have 12 people in the audience, from town meeting members, Board of Health, residents from other communities, Lynn and Revere are here. Anybody have anything they want to share? Any thoughts? That being said, I'll leave it up to members' comment at this point in time. Jeannie, you have any thoughts at this point?
I just want to thank Mr. Sereno. You're always doing your homework and very thorough. I wish I knew you in high school. Would have enlisted you. Thank you.
Debbie?
I too want to thank Mike. I think he did a phenomenal job as always. I think we need more correspondence with the DEP. I want to thank Peter for coordinating that so that he and I could go up to the DEP in Woburn and spend time and go through the files. And they were very accommodating. We could go up again to the DEP in Woburn if need be. But it's important that we all stay abreast and we know what's going on. I think communication is key with this. As everyone knows that's sitting here, that landfill was supposed to be closed in 1996 with a grassy seed. And it just keeps on going. And we just need to do whatever we can. And I do wish that when Waste, somebody was here to sit at the table so that they could take part in this discussion as well. I was disappointed when I got the text message today at 5:26, finding out that they weren't going to attend. But I do thank each and every one of you for attending, and everybody here that is on the committee for all their hard work. So thank you.
Mike?
No, just I had enough to say.
Thanks again. Carla?
Just to echo what Jeannie said, thank you, Mike, for that very comprehensive analysis, and it's eye-opening to see what little amount was proposed by when and what just a kind of a cursory look you went through, and there's $5 million worth of potential taxes there for the town. So thank you for all of that and for presenting it in such a clear manner.
You will.
Yeah, and I'll conclude by saying that ultimately it's any discretion over whether or not expansion should take place is in the hands of the Board of Health. So the Board of Health, it's a non-political body that is appointed based on qualifications that will ultimately follow a process that the state has laid out in the siting law. And once the site is, if and ever it's found suitable, it would have to go to the Board of Health, not an elected body. Our role, again, is to look at potential economic use. I would also like, when we give our final report, or a updated report to town meeting, to include that information as well when we submit it along with our minutes.
Yeah, just like I like to say again is, you have to look at it as an economic benefit to the town, because that's what Wynn and Wheelabrator, both of them tried to sell to the town about adding more ash landfill. They said, oh, it's an economic benefit to Saugus. It's not, because once you ruin the development opportunity of that landfill, that's it.
It's gone forever.
And state law only requires you would require Wynn to monitor that landfill for 30 years. Then they could walk away. And who's responsible for it? All the taxpayers in the state of Massachusetts. So it's not an economic benefit. The dumping more ash is not an economic benefit for the town.
Unfortunately, Mike,
developing it is.
the town is in such good financial shape that the dollars that they're offering, we don't have to accept deals that are bad for Saugus anymore. Okay? We can do what's right for Saugus and right for the people of Saugus without having to accept things that no other community in the state or in the country would even consider accepting. So, with that said, we just have to set our next meeting date. Do you want to stay on the monthly basis? Mondays, I assume, are in the best interest of... anyone want to propose a date? October, I'll throw something out, October 21st, it's a Monday, or October 28th.
21st.
21st is good.
Okay, hopefully by then we'll have some response back from DEP on our correspondence. Okay, and is there anything like you'd like to see on the next agenda? If there is, let me know through an email, and we'll put it on.
Will we continue to meet here, or will we be back at the town hall?
If the town hall, the painting is done in the auditorium, I'd prefer to go back there.
Will
town
we
hall.
So we would be meeting upstairs instead of the conference room?
If the conference room is available, we'll meet in the conference room. If it's not, we'll go upstairs.
Okay.
Sound good? Okay, so
Peter?
October,
6:15.
6:15 work for you, Debbie?
Yes.
6:15 on October 21st.
Pete, some,
Yes, Mary, please,
Is the
can
town
you
of
take the,
Shrewsbury?
can you stand to the mic?
Oh, thank you.
Mary Robley?
very much.
Thank you.
Is the town of Shrewsbury also fighting with them over the ash that's being sent up their way?
No, my understanding is that Shrewsbury has a properly designed, lined, covered ash landfill that never had any solid waste underneath it as this does. And they have a host community agreement that pays revenue. And the last I heard is that some were upset that Saugus ash was going there because it was taking up space that could have been used for ash that was yielding revenue for Shrewsbury.
Right.
So my understanding is they're not upset. Ultimately, the state has to site another ash landfill someplace. If they're going to continue to have burning, if the state
Right.
still wants to burn trash as a way of disposing of solid waste, they're going to have to come up with another ash landfill somewhere. It can't be Saugus all the time.
No.
You know, because obviously it's shortchanging our environment, our health, and our economy, and our
course,
treasury.
yeah.
So there's three things that are being impacted there, and not to mention what it's doing to surrounding communities, the residents of surrounding communities, and environmental justice area. So we do have contacts in Shrewsbury. I'll reach out and see
Good.
what's going on there. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks.
Anybody else? One final call? No? Okay, with that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn at 7:13.
So moved.
Ms. Panetta moves to adjourn at 7:13. Chair second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Mike, can you email that to me? Is that emailable?